coast or just there. Okay. That doesn't mean anything.
Dusty Tacha, Area Range Specialist, NRCS, out of South Hutchinson, Kansas.
Ted Hauser, Area Range Specialist out of Tribune, Kansas.
Well, primarily it's about helping producers with about any range resource concern that they have, and then in more recent years it's expanded beyond the range land use onto basically any grazing resource concern they have. You know, whether that expands onto crop residue grazing or cover crop grazing, annually planted pasture, tame grass pasture, so on and so forth. But pretty much any grazing resource issues, and that ranges from grazing plans and stocking rates, drought contingency planning, to infrastructure needed to support those practices, water, fence, all those sorts of things, and then additional resource concerns. A big one in our state is brush encroachment, woody invasion, and the need to use prescribed fire to curb that.
Yes, we live out, Sharon Springs is in Tribune or clear out on the Colorado border in western Kansas. And I cover from Sharon Springs to Hayes down to Hodgman County and then back to Hamilton County. So there's about 13, 14 counties in that area that I cover and administer from or give range assistance to.
So I'll start off by saying the workshop's gone very well so far. We've had awesome weather, which is hard to come by temperature wise in early August. But we've got a combination of producers, NRCS employees. Some of them are new hire employees. Some of them are employees that may have been on for a while and just haven't had a lot of exposure to the range discipline, range management principles. And then we've also got some partner folks here, Kansas Wildlife and Parks Tourism, Pheasants Forever. Got a couple guys here from Army Corps of Engineers. So
and a couple ranchers as well. So
yeah. And you know, I think everybody's here with the common goal to learn something about range or expand on what they know or what they thought they already knew about range, and maybe they had some misconceptions about the discipline and how things worked, and maybe we get that right, and maybe we just introduce them to some new concepts and new stuff that they'd never thought of before. Around, you know, the tighter, and we're going to talk about that this afternoon, but the tighter you make the cells to a point, the more cells you have. So if the goal is to provide growing season rest, the more cells you have.
And as well, I mean, we do a lot of plant ID in this particular course that we're putting on, you know, these 3 days, and just so they get an understanding of the species of plants and things that are out here on the native range, not just weeds from that standpoint, and the native grasses as well, and what types they are and how to identify them. So we came out and did an evaluation on this pasture just right behind us this morning, and did a full evaluation on it. We looked at production and then cow size and you know, animal requirements on what they would need, and then we actually fenced off a paddock, and then we're going to come back tomorrow and see how our evaluation turned out and see how the cows in. So we put 100 head on 10 acres, and we're going to see how it turns out in the morning. So based off all the calculations that we did and what Dusty and I do on a daily basis from a standpoint of out on the native range, providing a grazing plan to the individual producers or ranchers. So
I think that's huge. So, you know, as far as you were asking about curriculum, and there's some things that you've got to hit on. So how much forage is being grown, how much is available to consume, how much will a given herd consume over a given period of time, and can we find that balance? And if you're gonna put on any kind of a range workshop, a base range workshop, you've got to start there, and then we expand off into the stuff, the nuances of some prescribed fire and its need and use, and those sorts of things, grazing systems and all that. So there's that foundation set of curriculum that has to be there, and the example that Ted spoke of that's been set up in the paddock that's right behind us here is a prime example of just fork and line application of some of that base animal forage balance, and it's way better. I mean, we did it death by PowerPoint in the classroom. We danced around the subject a little bit in some other exercises yesterday, but this is direct application of that, where we inventory the forage, we basically set the stalking rate. The animals are grazing. It's a high intensity, short duration deal because, you know, we're not going to keep these folks here for 2 months to see what happens. But we're going to see tomorrow how that played out, and I think seeing something come just to fruition and not just seeing it on paper or hear somebody, you know, from some agency telling you about it. Adjacent cell, right? And then you also increase the stock density, which is going to force them onto some of the less desirable stuff, and you can make an acre run further because, and that's where that grazing efficiency increase comes from, right? So you go from the standard 50% grazing efficiency.
Well, and I'd give an example. We worked with a rancher out in Hamilton County on a fairly large unit out there, 10 to 15,000 acres. And when we first started, there was absolutely, I mean, they didn't have a clue. They requested a grazing plan from us. We came in and did we inventory just like what we talked about here. And the technical assistance that we actually provided to them from a standpoint has, I mean, it basically saved the ranch is what it boils down to from a standpoint of their management on the ranch. The animals that they had on there, how set the stalking rate, and the technical assistance that we provided them through NRCS, through our prescribed grazing spec, as well as we implemented a water system out there on this particular ranch to facilitate prescribed grazing, and then put cross fences in as well, and developed a grazing system on it, and it's worked out fairly well. So,
well, we're going to have to continue to teach the same foundation information. I mean, that you've got to start at the bottom and build up, and like I spoke in the classroom this morning. You know, there's no fancy grazing system in the world that's going to save something or improve something if the animal forage balance is out of whack, right? So you've got to teach those foundation principles.
Teach the basics up front.
But moving, I mean, as far as the pressing resource concerns in the state right now, and moving forward, we've got to push. We have to push fire, big time.
As a management practice to control Eastern Red Cedars, so because they're moving west, and we don't have the huge problem out west, but clear out on the Colorado border, but they're moving west, and eventually we will. So, but that's exactly right.
It's going to be a land conversion to something that's not recognizable as rangeland and won't be usable as we know rangeland today, which is that's detrimental on so many levels. You know, to not losing the grassland biome. I mean, it's happening. This like I said, this is a foundation grazing management principles workshop, you know, and so to turn that into a prescribed burn workshop would be erroneous.
We couldn't do it here. I mean, but we need to get the basics down from a grazing standpoint and a forage inventory or from a baseline. We need to set the baseline, make sure we've got the animals right. We got that animal forage balance, as Dusty said. We got to have that right, and then we start looking at management practices to facilitate what and provide some alternatives to the producer on what their goals and objectives are on the land.
Yeah. So because the prescribed fire thing would be a whole nother week-long deal, and it would have a box of foundation material and education curriculum to pass along with it that would be built one step past what's going on here today.
And the basic forage inventory that we're doing now is the basis for that's the foundation for the prescribed burn. So that's where we start with the principles of the grazing from a standpoint of what we've been doing here up to date.
We need to get the word out. You know, I enjoy teaching these. I absolutely love that we get new NRCS employees. This is an excellent opportunity agency-wise to send our own folks to, and I like sharing stuff with partners. But getting word out and getting more producers. You know, we do this. This is a big one. I do all kinds of other, you know, just 1 hour, maybe morning, maybe afternoon, maybe a whole day workshop on grazing practices, on prescribed burning, on all that, and getting more producers, making this kind of stuff available, or getting the word out so we get more ag producers at these deals. So it's not just kind of an in-house deal. We have a few, and we've always had a few. Some years are more than others, but you know, I know time constraints of those folks. They're busy people. Is always a pressing situation there. But yeah, I'd like to I'd like to get that figured out.
Yeah, agreed. And you know, the more ranchers and producers that we get here, we learn just as much from them as they learn from us, and from that standpoint. And it's their land, their ranch. We're just trying to provide technical assistance to help them improve it as we go on down the line. So.
You bet.